Imagine going to sleep tonight and waking up after living an entire lifetime in your dream. Well, that's what happened to this one guy who said he was knocked unconscious, and while he was unconscious, he dreamed that he had this whole entire life. He met this woman that he pursued for months before he finally won her over. They dated for 2 years before they got married, and then once they were married, they had a daughter. He says that he had a great job and his wife stayed at home, and when his daughter was 2, she got pregnant and they had a son. He says that one day when he was sitting on the couch, he noticed that the lamp looked weird. Like, it looked inverted. It was still 3D, but he said that it looked really strange and he couldn't stop fixating on it. He stayed up all night staring at that lamp. He just couldn't stop fixating on it because it just looked so weird or wrong. There was something off about this lamp that he just could not stop thinking about it. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating. He would only get up to go to the bathroom, he says. His wife was worried, so she called someone to try to talk him out of looking at this lamp. But nobody could convince him to stop worrying about this lamp. They couldn't convince him to eat or drink or do anything until he finally had the epiphany that none of it was real. The last 10 years of his life were not real. He said that the red lamp grew wider and wider until it took up his whole field of view. And then he could hear screams going on. And suddenly he woke up. He became aware of all the pain that he was in and realized that he had missing teeth. He was surrounded by a bunch of people that he didn't know who were screaming frantically and trying to get away from the scene. So there's a cop that picks him up and puts him in the back of a cop car. He just assumes that he was in such bad shape that the cop didn't want to wait for an ambulance to arrive. And he was taken to a hospital where he received a bunch of scans and CT scans and stuff on his head. He recovered from his head injuries, but the pain of losing his wife and kids was too much for him. He went through 3 years of being extremely depressed over losing his wife and kids. He felt like he was losing his mind because he wasn't sure if any of it was real or not. He didn't feel like he could talk to anyone either because he didn't want anyone to think he was insane, so he spiraled for a few years. He always hoped that he would see him in his dreams, but he never has. He sees glimpses of his son out of the corner of his eye sometimes, but they never visit him in his dreams like he always hopes. This guy was fishing alone in the river beside his grandmother's house, somewhere that he had fished his whole entire life. He was sitting there by the bank with his dog when suddenly his line got hit really hard. He thought that it was just a fish, but something felt off. He said that he started walking into the water because he felt pulled and drawn to walk, and he couldn't stop. The dog was barking and snapping and even biting at him, trying to keep him from going into the water. Then something came up out of the water. He described it as having a human head, a human torso, but it had greenish brown skin, and the hand of the being was pulling the line towards him. He was so terrified, but he couldn't stop moving towards it because he was so drawn to it. That's when his dog jumped between him and the being, and it snapped him out of it. As him and his dog tried to get away, the being grabbed the dog. He cut the fishing line, grabbed his dog, and they ran as fast as they could. He heard a weird slapping sound and grunting going on behind him as him and his dog were hurrying, trying to get out of the water. When they finally got back home, the dog was badly hurt and part of his ear was gone. At the vet, they were told that the dog had a tooth lodged in her skull and it looked very similar to an alligator tooth. But whatever that thing was, it definitely wasn't an alligator. Okay, so you might have heard the story already. There was a guy found on a beach in Florida, completely dehydrated, disoriented, and drawing strange symbols in the sand. He claimed that dolphins taken him underwater and that he had been gone for 3 days helping them build some underwater city. Most people brush it off and now it's being completely labeled as fake. Around the same area in Florida, there have been multiple reports of dolphins washing up dead along the shore. At the same time, people have been reporting explosions that they hear coming from underwater. And then I came across this comment. Someone said that their uncle in Germany had a very similar experience. He went missing for 3 weeks, and when he came back, he was completely disoriented. He claimed that he had been taken underwater to the city at the bottom of a lake and was helping build tunnels or structures. The entire village had been searching for him and thought he was dead. He was hospitalized and examined, but his story never changed. 2 completely different places, many years apart, similar stories. So what do you think is really going on?